A resident of Moscow wrote a denunciation of an 8-year-old classmate of her daughter. The reason was a video on the social network where a first grader crumpled a drawing of a Russian flag with her hands amid a Ukrainian flag. The Moscow resident saw in this a Russiophobic position of the child. 16-year-old Yegor Balazeykin is charged with terrorism for attempting to set fire to a military enlistment office in Kirovsk. For this, he faces up to 15 years in prison. The young man does not deny that he threw a bottle with the incendiary mixture at the iron door of the building, but Yegor himself and his parents do not agree with the wording, an attempted terrorist attack.
He did not have a goal either to set fire to the military enlistment office or for someone to get hurt during the action. He says that it was such a symbolic gesture on his part to express his disagreement with the so-called military operation.
A resident of the Ryazan region faces a prison term for a joke about the retreat of the Russian army from Kherson. In Yaroslavl, a court sentenced a local resident to a year and a half of prison for setting fire to a banner with the letter Z on one of the buildings in the city center. The culinary page of the Ukrainian chef has also been banned in Russia. Under the recipe for lentils, he posted an anti-war message to the Russians.
From these individual cases, there is a tendency, a trend, and a general situation. Therefore, the state is acting to some extent, I would say, to a key extent probably. Because if there were no approval of the state, there would be no officially pursued state policy, and of course there would be no repressions. Therefore, the state approves this. And this happens with the sanction of our supreme, so to speak, commander-in-chief.
Theater director Vsevolod Lisovsky spent a month in a special detention center for 2 administrative arrests. He was twice accused of discrediting the Russian army. The director was released on March the 12th. The next day, he left Russia. Criminal cases for alleged slander, fakes, discrediting the army have become the new norm in Russia, all in order to intimidate those who disagree with the Kremlin's actions, analysts say.
Instead, the Kremlin is likely to follow the path of harsh propaganda and defiant persecution of dissenters, creating a picture that frightens the average Russian. Either deliberately public prosecution and long sentences or extrajudicial execution can be used. In such a scenario, the flywheel of repression will affect not a few million, but several tons of thousands. And this, at this stage, will be enough to retain power. From analytic material of the Ukrainian Institute for the Future.
On March the 13th, the trial of Russian opposition leader Vladimir Kara-Murza began in a Moscow court. He was arrested in April 2022 on charges of spreading false information about the Russian military.
The issue is definitely political, and in fact, everything that the state prosecutor read out, everything concerns political accusations. In essence, this is a persecution for criticism.
For the fact that Kara-Murza publicly condemned Russia's war against Ukraine, he faces up to 25 years in prison. Reported by Diana Kolesnik, Natalia Gusak, Volodymyr Штангелов, UATV News.